Tam Talks explores life, spirituality, and general weirdness through quirky storytelling and laughter, lighting you up in your life journey. Let's go! Greetings, Earthlings. This episode is going to be, I'm going to do a trigger warning for substance abuse for people. So if you have triggers, be warned. Maybe you don't want to listen to this one. So I just wanted to start with that. So I'm going to tell you a little story. It is noon and today is, middle of April 2025. So who knows when you're listening to this, but this happened this morning. So about 4 hours ago, actually almost exactly 4 hours ago. And I feel passionately about this topic, and yeah, it's just interesting how the universe works. So I walk my dog every morning, and I generally will walk down to the lake and back. I have like my route. And this morning I was walking, and so here's another little side note. I always make sure I'm back before my boys leave and hop on the bus so I can give them a hug and say have a good day, even though my younger one's like, don't hug me, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, I still force hug him. So I'm usually back home by like before 8:20 when they leave. So this, I had tons of time. I think I left at like 7:30 in the morning. So usually I'm back within like 30 to 40 minutes, depending on whatever loop I do. So this morning, beautiful weather. I was like, yes, it's amazing. It's finally warming up. And so I was walking and I was almost down by the water, and I was on kind of like a side street approaching this road that runs along like next to the lake. And I remember hearing a car walk or coming up behind me, and there was a stop sign, and people here run stop signs like no tomorrow. And so I'm like, stop sign watch. So I always turn around and make sure I see, because if people, I find that if someone's there, then they will stop when maybe they wouldn't have stopped before. I don't know. So anyways, I remember this car pulling up, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. They actually stopped. And I saw like the girl, she was just like a blonde girl. I don't know. She looked maybe, I don't know, late 20s, early 30s, something like that. So I just noticed, and I was like, oh, good, impressive. She stopped at the stop sign. So she continued on the stop sign, like the next one, which lines up with the road that runs along the lake, was right like shortly after. So she stopped there, and then she made a right and started like driving along that road. So normally my route, I would go left. So I saw her pull over, and I still had like a few kind of steps to go until I would reach that road. And I thought, oh, that's weird. I wonder what she's doing. But then I saw a guy standing there. So I thought, oh, maybe she's picking him up and think they're carpooling to work or something. So as I got closer, I could see that he was not getting into the car, like he was walking his dog. And so he was walking kind of towards where I was coming from. And as I got down to the road, I looked down and I was like, oh, interesting, because she pulled over, but half of the car was up on the boulevard, like had gone over the curb. And the other two, like the other half of the car was still on the road. And I was like, oh, that's odd, because if you just wanted to pull over, you would just pull over. And there's actually like an extra lane there that is marked for that you could pull over and park. So I'm kind of looking, and the guy has stopped walking, and he's turned around and he's looking at this car now too. And I'm thinking, this is kind of weird. So I decide to turn right, but I'm on the other side of the road because my dog's reactive and he had a dog, and I just do that. So and I think, okay, well, maybe something's not right if she's gone up on the curb. And so you can tell he's thinking the same thing, but we're kind of like, okay, well, let's see. So as I'm walking, well, then the car starts going again. So I'm like, oh, okay, maybe she got a phone call and decided to pull over. Like, who knows what people are doing, right? And this road is pretty, I'm not going to okay, I live in a small town, so it's not busy, like a thriving metropolis busy, but for my town, it's like one of the main roads out of town. So, there's probably a car every, I don't know, minute or two, which is so funny when I say it out loud, because where I used to live, it was much busier. But it is also, it was like, 7:45 or 8 in the morning. So people are kind of getting out to work and all that. Anyway, so her car starts moving, and very slowly. But I'm looking at the car and I'm like, wait a minute. And the guy's also watching this car. So she's slowly drifting. And now she's going into the oncoming traffic lane. And there's like a slight little hill, like upward hill. There's nobody else coming, thankfully. And as this is happening, well, someone came up behind her actually, and they're just kind of looking, and they went around and kept going. And then next thing you know, as she's slowly creeping across the road, well, she goes up and over the curb on the other side of the road. And there's another car coming towards, which now she's completely off the road and in the grass and into a line of cedars. So as we're watching this guy looks at me, I look at him, he starts running, and I'm like, I'll call 911. So I call 911. He's running towards this car, and the car has stopped like by the cedars, and kind of the driver's side is completely in the cedars. So you could access the passenger side. So as I'm approaching, I'm like, okay, is she, like, what's going on? And he's like, she's unconscious, like her head was on the steering wheel. And I'm like, okay. And then so he runs across the street, ties his dog on the tree, comes back. I try to open the passenger door. Meanwhile, I'm on the phone with 911, telling them what's going on. And they're like, okay, where are you? And I'm like, oh, it's called whatever this. Yeah. I don't know how much I can say for privacy issues, so I'm just going to keep names of roads and stuff out of this. So I try the door and it's locked, and I look, and like, just her head is on the steering wheel. She is completely unconscious. And so I'm like banging on the window. The guy comes back and he kind of climbs through, and I'm like, knock on the window. And he wasn't sure. Like, we were both in shock. We're just like, whoa, we've just woken up here. What is happening? We're walking our dogs. So the 911 operator is just like, okay, well, is she breathing? Does she? And I'm like, I don't know. The doors are locked. We can't get into the car. And so we're banging. I'm like literally kicking the back of the car and slamming on the back hood, while the other guy is like knocking on the windows, and we're just yelling like, wake up, let's go. So the 911 operator is like, okay, we're sending an ambulance. I'm like, amazing. Like, what do we do? Meanwhile, the guy who had stopped as well, he's like, can we break the window? Like, does he want me to break the window and get in and unlock the car and all this? And the 911 operator is like, yep, if you're comfortable doing it, please do it. So he's looking at me, the other guy, and I'm like, break it, like, break the window, just go. So I don't know if he broke it. I can't remember if it was with his like arm or if he kicked it in. But he was so nice, this guy, and he had a really thick, like, European accent. He was this very kind individual who just seemed so in shock, and so was I. But he was very just a genuine person who didn't know what to do, right? And there's bossy me, who's just like, break the window. So anyways, he breaks the window, but in the meantime, he's phoned someone, and he's talking to this person and telling him where we are. So as I'm still talking to the 911, this woman walks up, who turns out to be the woman who he called, which is like his landlady, I guess, like owns the house where he lives. And she's a nurse. So he's broken the window at this point. They've unlocked the door, and she has climbed in to get close to this girl to see what the heck is going on. So he's on the other side, and the 911 operator is like, okay, does she have a heartbeat? Is she breathing? All that stuff. So she's calling out to me, yep, she has a heartbeat. I'm just trying to like figure out what's going on. So she's, trying to assess the situation. And he's asking, is there anything near her in the car? Well, there's broken glass, and the nurse is like perched on top of the passenger seat, like on top of whatever was there, just trying to help her. So we couldn't even really see what was around. She's like, I don't know what this is. Another woman had shown up at some point, who I think was also a nurse. I don't know if that was like a neighbor of theirs as well. And so they're just kind of trying to assess the situation. So they hand me this, I think it was a lighter. I'm like, I don't know what this is. It looked like a vape thing, but then I was like, oh, and then someone said, oh, it's a lighter. So I'm like, okay. So I put the lighter in the passenger side, like the little arm, on the door where you put things, like you use the handle to open, and there's like a little part there when you close the door, in that. So I just put it in there, because I'm like, okay, well, we don't need that. And then at some point, the girl, like, I guess made this like snoring or snorting sound. Like, so we were like, okay, she's breathing because we just heard that. But she was out, like, they were like, wake up and trying to get her alert, and she wouldn't. Well, so at some point, so this guy's like, okay, well, I'm going to let you go. The ambulance is on the way. And, whatever, that's it. I'm like, okay. So meanwhile, the nurses are like, okay, well, I think she needs, it's like a kit for drug overdoses. I guess you can reverse it. It's like I can't remember if it's called a NED or NED. I don't know, something. And because it's been now a few minutes, and they're like, okay, well, where's the ambulance? Like, this, she is unconscious and like not good, not in a good state at all. So then the nurse says, I have one in my trunk. So she tells the guy who was there, she's like, go get it. So he starts running to get it. Then I hear the sirens and I'm like, oh, so I yell at him. I'm like, they're here. Don't worry. Like, just, it's all good. So they pull up and, oh, wait. Oh my God. Sorry. I forgot about this part. So before this, so the 911 operator is like, okay, can you tell them to get her out of the car and laying down in, like, on her side in the recovery position so we can assess and see what's going on. And I'm like, okay. So I told them quite a few times, but I think everybody was in shock. So probably about the 7th time, I was like, guys, we need to get her out. Like, take her out of the car, pull her out. I'm like, do you need to take her out this side or that side? So finally the guy was over on the driver's side and pulled her out that way. And we couldn't see at this point because, like I said, her head was on the steering wheel. I didn't see, at least I was on the phone, and I was kind of that in between. Well, when they brought her out to the ground, she was blue, like bluish white, and not moving and not responding. Like, it was insane. And I'm like, whoa. So within a couple of minutes, that's when the ambulance showed up. So then the paramedics kind of took over and then put her onto the gurney and put her, and when they pulled up, I said, we think she's overdosed, because at some point in that interaction, someone said there was a bong on the front seat, so like drug paraphernalia. So they put her on the gurney, put her in, closed the doors, closed themselves in, and started working on her. And no police were there, and it had been about 15 minutes, and my dog, my German Shepherd, was with me, and usually people can't come anywhere near me. And he was so good. Like, people were, within a couple of feet from me, which is unheard of, but he was so good. He would bark and kind of just be like, yeah, I'm here, but I settled him. He was so, so good. Anyways, it was incredible. So then they're in the ambulance for like 50, it felt like 15 to 20 minutes. I'm not sure. And at some point I look over to the nurses, the ladies, and I'm like, should the police be here? And they're like, we were just saying that. And I said, well, when I called 911, in all fairness, I only requested an ambulance. Like, at that point, I didn't know. I just knew there was something medically not good. So I didn't say, oh, we need police as well. So anyways, literally as we say that, then you hear sirens, and the police cruisers showed up. I think there were 3 or 4 of them, which is funny because where I live, we have OPP. We don't have like a designated police service to our area because it's a smaller area. So I think it was like their entire, force that was on duty showed up. So anyways, the one officer came up. He was cute, actually. He was really cute. I don't usually like, yeah, anyways, I'm not gonna say, but it may have actually been our mayor's husband. I'm not sure, but it may not be. He had lots of cool tats, and he was super nice, and he was like, okay, can you guys stick around? Like, we're gonna need statements after. But he checked in, like, so he just opened up the back door and peeked his head in and kind of got a status from them, and then asked us, and he was like, oh, hey buddy, like, to Drift. And he was like, I'm gonna come and he's like, I need a statement from you too, or something like that. And then Drift gave him like a lunge bark. I was like, I'm like, sorry. Anyways, so he kind of checked in with them, and then another officer came over, a female, and so she was kind of trying to get, okay, who was here from start to finish. Meanwhile, the guy had left. The guy who had the other dog, I think he was just really shaken. So he left and continued walking the dog, and we could kind of see him off in the distance. And then I stayed, and she was like, did anybody see what happened from the start? And I'm like, yeah, I did. So she was like, okay, I'm going to take your statement. And so she told me, she kind of explained, okay, here's how it's going to go. I just want you to tell me what happened, and then I'm going to record it all. And I will ask you questions, about like the vehicle and the weather and the driving conditions and just all sorts of things. I think for court reasons and legal reasons, right? So, anyways, yeah, so I recounted the whole thing, the whole story, and she asked me the questions and I answered. And yeah, so then she thanked me at the end and she was like, that was a really good statement. I'm like, oh, good. So, anyways, and at the end, she said to me, I can put you into contact with victim services if you want. And I was like, I don't know. I'm like, what is that and why? And she was like, she's like, because of what you just witnessed. And she's like, if you need support or help. And I was like, oh, no, I'm a Reiki master and I'm a meditation teacher. And I'm like, I actually have a live meditation at 10 a.m. that I've got to go lead. And she's like, you may want to meditate before it. I'm like, oh, I think so. So at this point, I was kind of still figuring out, like, am I going to run this live? But the hard part was, not hard, but the interesting part was before everybody showed up, like, I just sat there and sent love and healing and Reiki to this woman as they were working on her in the ambulance. Because I do feel strongly that we do have that capability and we can send love and healing through intention and Reiki. I do believe strongly in my practice. So yeah, so that was a very interesting thing. And so I asked her, I was like, okay, is there any way that I can get an update to see how she's doing and all of that? Because, and the ambulance is still there. They're still working on her. But I did see them when the officer had opened the door shortly after when he first got there. I saw one of the paramedics reach over and get a vial of something that they would be injecting. So I think, and then I heard them say they were administering that, whatever that reverse drug thing is. So I think they had to assess and see what was going on. I don't know. It would actually be something interesting to look into because they must have to have certain markers, because I think it's a fairly strong narcotic that they would give someone to reverse the effects of, if it were fentanyl or something like that. I don't know. So they did administer that to her. So at that point, so by the time we finished our interview, I said to her, like, can I check in? Like, I want to know how this girl's doing. Like, she literally, the last time I saw her, she was blue. Like, she looked dead. She was dead. She looked dead. She was limp. Anyways. And so she said, actually, no, she's talking now. They've got a heartbeat. She's breathing. She's been chit chatting and all that stuff. So I'm like, oh, okay. Okay. So that for me was enough kind of closure. So we finished and she was like, you can head on now. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I better go get back and get ready for this Insight Timer live meditation. So I started walking back and I thanked the nurse and and in between this, somewhere when the guy was still there, I thanked him for staying because he did look like he just wanted to leave when it was all kind of happening. So I thanked him so much for staying and smashing the window and being there and doing all of it. And he was like, no, thank you. He's like, it was your strength. It was so sweet. He's like, it was your strength. I couldn't have done it without you. And he's like, but you told me and you told me what to do and I did it. And like, it was really sweet. And I'm like, well, thank you. And I thanked the other nurse as well. I waved to her as I was leaving and then I walked and then I proceeded to cry because I was okay at the time. And I remember saying, I could never work in the emergency services. Like, I just would be a puddle by the end of my shift. I'm good in the moment, but after, when I have time to feel and process, then that's when it's like, whew. So anyways, I cried kind of on and off, and Drift was just amazing, my dog. Oh, I thought about my boys, and I was like, I missed seeing them leave for school, and then I just felt so much gratitude that they don't even deal with drugs. Like, they are good kids. They don't even, yeah, there were so many things going through my mind. Like, and I did say to the nurses, like, we had to talk about our system and how it's failing and it has failed. And yeah, it just brought up a lot of fiery emotions because I've always said, not always, in the last couple of years, I have this thought and I'm like, our system is broken because if people have addictions, obviously it's a crutch that they are using to avoid some deep trauma. And unfortunately, it's a go-to for a lot of people, whether it's alcohol or gambling or drugs or sex or whatever that addiction is that pulls you out of your reality and your pain. That's what makes it the addiction, is that it gives you a temporary feeling of relief, of escape, right? You don't have to cope or think the thoughts or feel the feelings that are causing the pain when you are in that state. So I understand how it happens and why it happens, but it saddens me to think that we have options, like we have ways that we can grow and learn through this and heal ourselves. However, our system doesn't support that. And so when you throw in poverty and homelessness, like when you throw all of that in, well, there aren't funds there to do that. And yet our government, you know, supplies an alternate drug, and they can come and get free drugs, but they can't step in enough to stop someone from hurting themselves. So, and even the nurses were saying, they're like, yeah, it's sad because you stabilize them, you release them, and then they're off. And the nurses were saying, you know, they need to be harder on the dealers, because there's people who, you know, are on parole for the 24th time for dealing drugs. And I said, and yeah, they're responsible for how many lives being lost. And that's murder. So sorry, but you should be in jail for life if you are murdering individuals by overdose, whatever way it is. So anyways, there's my dog barking. I've always had this thought that maybe, not always, this is my thought from the last couple of years, that maybe what we need to do is have a process, and this would have to be a year-long process for individuals struggling. So when they're in a state of overdose and they need help, well, yes, you're admitted to the hospital and you are, what's the word, like neutralized, we'll say, and then they get you kind of sobered up, and then I don't think they should be released. I think they should be forced into a program of sobriety. And you know, a lot of people, it's like, well, then there's their human rights. Well, no, because they're not even respecting themselves, let alone other people. So if they had a safe container where it's like, okay, you get clean, and now the next step is a full detox. So they've got, you know, these could be wellness centers where this whole journey happens, or they could be separate centers where they kind of move to the next step, you know, after a certain amount of time. And I understand everybody has their own journey, so maybe it would take a shorter amount of time or longer amount of time, depending on the person, for like specific steps. And that's okay. So we would basically have a container of, say, a year, and these people can move through these steps. And the other part is like, so yeah, you get clean, you get detox. Well, then you get counseling, then you get help. And it doesn't have to be psychiatrists or psychologists. It can be social workers, counselors, coaches, like life coaches. It can be any type of therapist. But I think there has to be that holistic approach. I think there needs to be an education about healthy eating and what you're putting into your body. There needs to be an element of meditation, going within and just working through. There has to be that personal growth piece, because I don't think there's the clarity when you're in an addictive state. I think it takes a long time to get that clarity back. And there has to be the work where you learn how to forgive yourself. You learn how to move through the traumas and how to move forward out, not just to sit there and marinate in it and talk about it. And no, you want to help them soothe it, heal it, move out of it. And then the next step is like, okay, so how do we live a healthy lifestyle? Like I said, you know, healthy food and movement. Like, let's get these people moving, but also there needs to be a connection piece. So there needs to be like an AA, like a support circle, where there's people going through similar struggles, and it's facilitated by someone who knows addictions deeply and can talk people through this and help. And I feel like that needs to be a continual. So that would be a piece that would keep them connected even once they're through the program. And then the next step would be integration. So figuring out, okay, how do I function at a healthy level in society, and figuring out, okay, where would they live? So then there needs to be a piece where there's like temporary housing where it's recovery, and it's a very clean, there's no drugs, there's no cigarettes, there's no alcohol, there's nothing, because they've just cleaned all of this out of their system. And so there they continue this counseling, they continue the group work, they continue their healing process. They continue moving their body, feeding healthy food, and working on themselves. And then the next part is like, okay, so let's look at your integration back into society. How are we going to, like, where are you going to work? What are we going to do? What are the plans in place for your continued healing and check-ins? And then there's eventually the, okay, now we're going to set them up with housing. And maybe there's a housing that is, maybe there's like an extension. So maybe it's a year beyond that where they can stay in that housing, and it's heavily monitored, so that we want these people to win, right? We want them to come back into a full state of health. And so maybe it's a very regimented, they go to work, they get a specific shuttle to their job, they come back and they do that for a period of time. So maybe this is a 2-year process. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, well, the funding, and where are you going to get the funding for this? Well, I'm sorry, but how much is it costing every time an addict attends the hospital and stays in hospital and gets clean? How much is it costing to run these alternate drug clinics and clean needles and all this bullshit? And how much is it costing every time emergency personnel have to come out to a situation like I witnessed this morning? Never mind there are dozens of other situations. Never mind how much is it costing to have people making sure that these, pop-up shelters where people are, tent cities and whatnot, are trying to survive. Never mind the drugs. How much money is in drugs? Like, pull that out of there. I don't know how you would do that part. But anyways, the point is, we can do anything. Maybe we need to stop sending money all over the world, and maybe we need to stop and focus inward and deal with this first, right? Get our flippin' selves healthy. So anyways, there's my rant on that. But yeah, so I did come home and do the meditation. I first got home, and so I walked, and I luckily had about a 15-minute walk back. And I just kind of let myself cry when I needed to, and just think through this girl and what, just the stuff. And I just felt it and did it, went through it, and kept walking. And then when I got home, I knew I had to do my weights and my yoga. And so I did that. And usually I would put on 90s dance music for my weights, but I put on just an energy clearing sound in the background, just to kind of heal and soothe my nervous system. Did my weights, did a really beautiful grounding yoga with Adrienne practice, just 11, I think it was 11 minutes or 13 minutes, something like that. And during the yoga practice, I paused and went to my room because I felt the need to put my holy water that I got in Bali when we did our water temple, our purification ceremony. And this is water that was gathered by a priest from Bali, and from their fountain, their water source within the temple. Like, it's sacred water. So I picked that up, put some of that on my third eye, dropped some on my crown, and then I put some on my heart. I was like, whew, okay. So I just kind of really grounded myself here, and just, sat on the couch for a minute, called Drift over and told him what a good boy he was, and just gave him a hug and told him how proud I was, because he's had so many struggles, this dog, with just reactivity, and he just was brilliant. He was amazing. So just, felt that love and support from my dog, my best friend, as I call him. And so I went back, finished my yoga practice, and then I got set up for my meditation because it was like a half hour, and I was really hungry all of a sudden. So I made my smoothie, got set up, did all of my things, and then saw my mom like 10 minutes before she was just heading out, and I bumped into her. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll tell you about my walk later. And then anyways, I quickly told her then, and then I got I was crying again. So I'm like, okay, I gotta go. I gotta just ground myself, because it was 5 minutes until the start of this live. And it was funny because the topic of the live was a Reiki healing. And even when I was walking back, I thought, okay, well, we can send this to the girl as well. So I had, I think, 11 people RSVP. And it's all by donation. It's just a free thing on Insight Timer. I love it. I've only done a few of them. Anyway, so I sat there and got grounded, and my good friend Kayla was on. Like, I just love it. And yeah, so then I introduced myself and I grounded myself. Like, I'm like, okay, because I did consider canceling it. I would feel my energy and see, and I was grounded. I was like, okay, I'm good to go. And it was beautiful because I think the most amount of people I've had on alive before were like 44 maybe, or 50 or 48, something like that. So by the end of this one, I think I had, I don't know, 76 people meditating. It was crazy, but the meditation was beautiful. And I felt really grounded and I felt better through it. And people were like really interactive and typing in the chat. And there were people there from Denmark and Sweden and all over the US and Canada. It was so amazing. It was really cool. And people donated. It was a very magical experience. And I felt just even more grounded once I did that. So anyways, this was a really long one, but like I said, it's a topic that, yeah, I don't know. Because I see the solution to it, and I know that people who work in the industry don't see it that simply, and that's one of my things is I tend to simplify things, and I think, okay, well, let's just do it this way and see what happens, but I know it's much more intricate. So anyways, my whole point too is to just always help individuals, because that's what, when the guy was saying to me, you gave me the strength, and I said, well, we would just do what we need to do to help our fellow humans, right? And he's like, that's right. I'm like, that's what we're here to do. Compassion and love, and we just help where we can, and we never know who it is that we're going to help and what action may change someone's life and may make something go off in their mind that makes them realize that it's time for a change. So get out there, share the love, help where you can. And yeah, all right. Thanks for listening. Peace out. Thanks for hanging out and listening to my wild and wacky Tam Talks. Follow Tam Talks to be notified of new episodes. Peace out.